My alien maid accidentally came into my room. She was very surprised when she saw what I was doing. The door hissed open without warning, the soft pneumatic sigh of the ship's mechanisms always louder when you weren't expecting company. He looked up too late. She was already standing there, frozen in the doorway, her elongated ears twitching like startled antennae. For 3 full seconds, neither moved. His mind went blank, wiped cleaner than the ship's sterilization logs. Her glowing eyes widened, shimmering like 2 tiny plasma cores in the dim cabin light. He tried to speak, but what could he possibly say? There was no manual for this. No entry in the Human-Alien Cohabitation Guide, titled What to Do When Your Alien Maid Walks In on You at the Worst Possible Moment. Her gasp broke the silence. Humans, you're so strange. The words dripped somewhere between shock, amusement, and mild scientific curiosity. She tilted her head, ears flicking in odd directions as though they were satellite dishes recalibrating to capture this bewildering human frequency. He scrambled to cover his embarrassment, fumbling with the blanket like it was some kind of shield. Don't you knock." His voice cracked, a traitorous squeak that made her ears twitch again, this time almost like laughter. "Knock," she repeated, as though tasting the word. "You live inside a metal box, traveling at faster than light speeds. What is knocking supposed to accomplish? Warning you that air molecules are about to vibrate against your door." "That's exactly what it's supposed to accomplish," he shot back, the heat rising in his face. "A little privacy would be nice, even on a spaceship, especially on a spaceship." Instead of apologizing or retreating, she stepped inside, curiosity overcoming propriety. The faint glow from her skin, a natural bioluminescence she'd once explained came from symbiotic cells in her bloodstream, cast strange shadows across the walls. She studied him like a scientist observing a peculiar specimen through a microscope. He groaned and pulled the blanket tighter. "You know, some cultures would consider this a crime." Her lips curved into the faintest smirk. "And some cultures would consider this foreplay." His jaw dropped. "Excuse me." She blinked innocently, though her ears wiggled in a way that gave her away. "It's just data. In my people's archives, humans are categorized as unpredictable and dramatic. I can confirm both are accurate." He wanted to crawl into a black hole and never emerge. "I don't suppose you'll let me live this down, will you?" Her laughter rang out, bright and melodic, bouncing against the sterile walls. "Not likely. You're the first human I've seen do, whatever that was. Consider me fascinated." He buried his face in his hands, muttering, "This is worse than the time the food replicator glitched and gave me soup in a sock." That only made her laugh harder, and something in his chest relaxed despite his humiliation. She wasn't mocking him cruelly. She was laughing like someone who just stumbled across a rare cosmic anomaly, equal parts bewildered and delighted. When her laughter subsided, she perched lightly on the edge of his desk, long legs folding with impossible grace. "You do realize," she said, "that in my culture, walking into another's quarters is a gesture of trust. If you weren't meant to be seen, you'd lock the door." He peeked at her through his fingers. "Oh, so this is my fault now." "Of course," she said simply, as if this was the most logical conclusion in the universe. Her ears twitched again, betraying her amusement. The tension cracked further. He let out a groan that turned into reluctant laughter. "This is ridiculous. I'm ridiculous. You're ridiculous." She leaned forward, eyes glimmering. "Good. Ridiculous is interesting. Better than boring." Somewhere beyond the walls of his quarters, the ship hummed on, engines carving their way through the black vacuum of space. But inside, the atmosphere had shifted. The accident, as humiliating as it was, had opened a door far wider than the one she'd walked through. For the first time, he saw her not just as an alien maid assigned by some distant council, but as a person, strange, sharp-witted, and unexpectedly kind. She rose to leave at last, pausing at the doorway. "Next time," she said, her voice carrying that same infuriating lilt of amusement, "you might want to activate the privacy shield. Unless, of course, you enjoy performing for an audience." His pillow flew at her head, but the door sealed shut before it could make contact. Alone again, he sank back against his bed, covering his face. He had a sinking suspicion this was only the beginning. Breakfast on a starship was supposed to be uneventful. A tray, a steaming mug of synthesized coffee that tasted like nostalgia and battery acid, and silence. But the silence didn't last long, because she slid into the seat across from him with all the elegance of someone who absolutely knew they were not invited. Her ears twitched as if picking up some private frequency of his irritation, and her glowing eyes locked onto his face like scanners. "You're still red," she announced, breaking a perfectly good moment of peace. He nearly spilled the coffee. "Red? I'm not red." "You are. Humans flush when embarrassed. It's fascinating. On my planet, embarrassment causes sneezing fits. Entire assemblies have collapsed into chaos because one delegate sneezed so hard their ears tangled." He stared. "You're making that up." She sipped her drink, something shimmering and teal that looked like liquid gemstones. "Am I? You'll never know." He groaned and stabbed at a scrambled something that was supposed to be eggs. "Look, about last night." "Ah, the great event," she interrupted, her ears perking like exclamation marks. "I've cataloged it already. Labeled under Human Activities, Strange Subcategory 7B. He dropped his fork. "You're keeping records?" She leaned forward, whispering like it was a conspiracy. "Of course. It's my duty to observe. Though don't worry, I'm marked it confidential. For now." "For now." His voice jumped an octave. "You can't just. What if someone finds it?" She tilted her head, considering. "Then they'll learn something very educational about human coping mechanisms. Honestly, you should be proud. You're advancing interspecies science." He put his face in his hands. "I'll never live this down, will I? Not as long as I breathe." Her grin was wide, mischievous. "And I have a very long lifespan." The ship's comm buzzed overhead, announcing some dull update about trajectory adjustments, but neither of them paid attention. Their table had become its own battlefield, one side armed with sarcasm and the other with mounting despair. He tried to shift the subject. "Fine. If we're sharing embarrassing facts, tell me something weird about your people." She tapped her chin with a finger, thinking. "Well, our ears double as environmental sensors. Temperature, air pressure, radiation levels. They're extremely sensitive. Which means," she paused dramatically, letting her ears wiggle, "we can tell when humans are lying." His stomach sank. "You can't possibly." "You lied about not being red just now," she said smugly. "Your face betrayed you, but my ears confirmed it. Congratulations, you're bad at deception on multiple fronts." He muttered something into his coffee that might have been unfair. She leaned back, satisfied. "Besides, you humans are the most entertaining species we've ever encountered. We live for centuries, remember? It gets dull. Then along come these fragile, impulsive creatures who panic when a door opens unexpectedly." He shot her a look. "You're never letting that go either, are you?" "Not until the stars burn out," she replied cheerfully. Despite himself, he laughed. It slipped out before he could stop it, a genuine, helpless sound, and her smile softened, just a little, as though she hadn't expected him to laugh with her instead of at her. They finished breakfast in a strange peace, broken only by her occasional humming that suspiciously matched the ship's engine vibrations. Later, while he ran maintenance checks in the engine bay, she followed him like an overly curious shadow. "Why do you humans need so many routines?" she asked. Poking at a control panel, he quickly swatted her hand away from. "Because routines keep things from exploding." "But explosions are fun. Not when you're inside them." She tilted her head, unconvinced. "On my world, controlled explosions are festival activity. You humans are so cautious." He shot her a glare over his shoulder. "You barged into my quarters last night, and now you're advocating explosions. You don't get to call me reckless." Her laughter echoed against the engine walls. Touché. By the end of the day, he was exhausted, but she was still buzzing with curiosity. When they crossed paths in the corridor before lights out, she stopped him with one final jab. "Do humans always react so dramatically to being seen? Or is it just you?" He sighed, too tired to fight back. "It's just me. You got assigned the most unlucky human in the fleet." Her grin widened, ears twitching in amusement. Lucky me. The door to his quarters slid shut behind him, and he leaned against it, heart thudding louder than the ship's engines. She was impossible, infuriating, hilarious, and against his better judgment, he was starting to enjoy it. She was waiting for him in the observation dome, sitting cross-legged on the transparent floor as though she trusted the void beneath her. Stars spilled around them in every direction, sharp and endless, the ship's shields humming faintly to keep death at bay. He hesitated at the entrance, half tempted to turn back, but she patted the floor beside her with exaggerated patience. "You avoided me all morning," she said, ears flicking with mock sternness. "I was busy," he muttered, settling beside her. "Somebody has to keep the reactors from frying us all." "You humans always say busy, when you mean embarrassed." Her glowing eyes narrowed in exaggerated suspicion. "It's adorable." He groaned. "It's not adorable. It's survival. Last night you nearly touched the plasma conduits like they were wind chimes." "Because they hummed beautifully," she countered. "You never appreciate aesthetics. Always so practical." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "If I let you decorate, we'd all be vaporized in a shower of rainbow sparks." She grinned. "At least we'd go out fabulously." Silence stretched, broken only by the whisper of life support systems. The stars seemed to pulse around them, almost listening. Then, softer, she asked, "Why does privacy matter so much to you? Why was it such a catastrophe when I walked in?" His throat tightened. "Because it's mine. On Earth, everyone wants something from you. Time, energy, pieces of yourself. Privacy is what's left. The only thing you control." Her ears lowered slightly, a gesture he'd learned meant sympathy. "We don't have that concept. Our minds are trained from childhood to sense each other's emotions. Privacy feels selfish to us." "Maybe I like being selfish," he said defensively, but his voice lacked bite. She leaned closer, curious. "And yet, you let me sit here. You let me listen." He stared at the stars to avoid her gaze. "Maybe I don't hate it as much as I pretend." Her smile softened. Progress. The ship's console chimed suddenly, shattering the fragile moment. A warning scrolled across the dome's edge. Asterisk minor anomaly detected. Sector 14, asterisk. He jumped up. "That's the maintenance ring. If we lose stability there, we could tumble out of orbit." She followed without hesitation, ears twitching with each klaxon. Finally, some excitement. "Excitement?" he sputtered as they sprinted down corridors. "You call catastrophic failure exciting?" "Of course. Where I'm from, near-death experiences are considered character development." "Remind me never to visit your planet." They reached the maintenance ring, where the metal groaned faintly under unseen pressure. He pulled up diagnostics, muttering curses under his breath. "It's a microfracture in the shield array. We need to weld it shut before it spreads." She tilted her head, already rolling up her sleeves. "Good. I've always wanted to play with molten metal." He blocked her with an arm. "Absolutely not. You nearly fried yourself on the plasma conduits yesterday." Her ears twitched with indignation. "My reflexes are faster than yours. Besides, my skin can tolerate higher temperatures." "That doesn't mean you're indestructible." She smirked. "It does mean I'd make an excellent superhero." He sighed, handing her a tool. "Fine, but if you fall into the void, I'm not chasing after you." "Liar," she said cheerfully, slipping into the maintenance harness. Together they sealed the fracture, sparks cascading like tiny stars. She hummed as she worked, completely unbothered by danger, while he clung to the framework with white knuckles. When the final weld hissed shut, the console pinged confirmation. The ship steadied, hum returning to normal. She floated beside him, weightless in the microgravity zone, her ears swaying with emotion. "See, that was exhilarating. Admit it, you liked it." He exhaled shakily. "I like surviving, not the almost dying part." Semantics. They drifted back to the corridor, tethering themselves clumsily. He brushed against her accidentally, and instead of pulling away, she leaned into it slightly, as though testing his reaction. His chest tightened, though he forced a joke. "If anyone asks, I'm telling them you bullied me into this." "Good," she said with a grin. Then they'll know the truth. Later, back in his quarters, he lay awake replaying the day. She had laughed in the face of danger, and somehow dragged him along with her. Maybe privacy wasn't the only thing worth clinging to out here. Maybe, against all logic, letting her in wasn't so terrifying after all. The first tremor came while he was halfway through repairing the hydrovalves. A low rumble rattled through the ship, followed by the lights flickering like nervous fireflies. He froze, spanner in hand. She appeared seconds later, ears twitching like antennae trying to pick up a signal. That was not routine vibration, she said, stating the obvious with alarming calm. No kidding, he muttered, checking the console. Red warnings bloomed across the display. We've drifted into an energy storm. Solar flares, plasma currents, maybe worse. Shields are straining. Her grin widened as though he'd announced dessert was on the menu. Finally, something interesting. He dropped the spanner. We're in the middle of a galactic lightning field, and you're smiling. Where I come from, storms are sacred. We dance in them. Great. Maybe you can dance us out of this one, he said, strapping himself into the console chair. Another shudder tore through the ship. The deck pitched, throwing her against the wall. She bounced back with uncanny agility, laughing. Your storms are more violent. I approve. He slammed buttons, trying to stabilize the shields. Don't approve. Just hold that panel steady. She pressed her glowing palms against the sparking console. Is this normal? No, nothing about this is normal. The ship groaned, alarms shrieking. He felt sweat bead at his temple. If we don't redirect power, the storm will strip us bare. Bare? That sounds scandalous. He shot her a glare. Not that kind of bare. Her ears twitched smug. You humans are too easy to tease. He shoved a toolkit at her. Less teasing, more fixing. Reroute those conduits. She flipped the panel open with surprising skill, fingers dancing across wires. You know, if this ship explodes, your embarrassing little incident won't matter anymore. Perspective. Not helping. He wrestled with the controls, forcing the shields to redistribute. Sparks sprayed overhead, filling the air with ozone. The storm roared louder, as if angry at their resistance. Lightning flared across the viewport, white-hot tendrils licking the hull. The ship jolted violently. He grabbed the armrest. She grabbed him. For one absurd second, he registered the heat of her glowing hand around his wrist before another tremor broke them apart. Stabilizer 3 is offline, she shouted over the noise. Then we'll do it manually. Get to the ring. They sprinted down the corridor, the lights stuttering like a dying heartbeat. Gravity faltered, pitching them against the walls. She whooped with laughter while he cursed every deity he knew. In the stabilizer ring, plasma arcs snapped like whips. He pulled out the emergency override, fingers trembling. She vaulted ahead without hesitation, landing dangerously close to the sparking core. Get back, he barked. She grinned. I told you I like storms. He lunged forward, yanking her into the safety of the tether harness. Then like them from a distance. Together they jammed the override into place, rerouting power. The ship shuddered once more, then slowly, agonizingly, settled into a steadier hum. The alarms dulled, leaving only the rasp of their breathing. He sagged against the railing, chest heaving. We're alive. Somehow. She leaned beside him, hair mussed, ears twitching triumphantly. That was glorious. You humans worry too much. Did you see the plasma arcs? Like fireworks. Fireworks don't try to kill you. Only if you light them wrong. He stared at her, half exasperated, half in awe. You're impossible, and yet indispensable. Her grin widened. Admit it. You'd have been toast without me. He wanted to argue, but couldn't. She'd reacted faster than he ever could, her strange instincts and unshakable humor keeping them both steady. He let out a weak laugh. Fine. You win. But if anyone asks, I fixed everything, and you just cheered from the sidelines. Perfect, she said, patting his shoulder. Then they'll know you're lying, because my ears will twitch when you tell the story. He groaned, covering his face with his hands. Why do I even try? Her laughter echoed down the corridor as the ship drifted out of the storm, battered but intact. He lowered his hands at last, watching her walk ahead, her glowing skin still shimmering faintly from the electric charge. For the first time, he realized he wasn't just grateful for her help. He was glad she was there, ridiculous jokes and all. Maybe surviving storms, galactic or otherwise, wasn't so bad with her at his side. He found her in the mess hall the next morning, perched on a counter, swinging her legs as though she hadn't nearly been vaporized by cosmic lightning 12 hours ago. She was chewing something green and gelatinous, glowing faintly in the dim light. "You look alive," she said, ears twitching in greeting. "Congratulations." "Barely," he muttered, pouring himself coffee that tasted even worse after a night of emergency repairs. She tilted her head. "You humans are fragile, but resilient, like glass that refuses to break. It's fascinating." "More like duct tape holding together a collapsing reactor," he said, sinking into a chair. Her grin widened. "You admit it now. You wouldn't have made it without me." He raised his mug in surrender. "Fine. You saved the ship. I owe you." "I'll think of something," she said, eyes glimmering with mischief. "Maybe I'll make you cook. I want to know what real human food tastes like, not this replicated sludge." He laughed, surprising himself. "It'll probably kill you faster than a storm. Then it'll be an honorable death." They sat in silence for a while, the hum of the ship steady around them. For once, there were no alarms, no shuddering bulkheads, no sparks threatening to fry them. Just quiet. He realized he didn't hate it. Not the quiet, not her presence, not even the memory of her barging into his quarters that first night. Somehow, in the mess of it all, she had become part of his rhythm. "You ever think," he said slowly, "that this was supposed to be temporary? You, me, this whole arrangement." She glanced at him, ears flicking thoughtfully. "Supposed to be. But storms don't follow rules. Neither do accidents." He snorted. "That's what this was. An accident." "The best kind," she said without hesitation. He shook his head, smiling despite himself. "You know, I used to think privacy was the only thing keeping me sane out here. Now I'm starting to think it was just keeping me lonely." Her ears lowered slightly, softer this time. "And now I don't mind the noise so much." For once, she didn't tease him. She just watched him, glowing eyes steady, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Then, as though she couldn't help herself, she said, "You're still ridiculous, though." He chuckled. "Yeah, but maybe ridiculous isn't the worst thing to be." Later, when the council's transmission finally came through, demanding updates on the storm, the repairs, and the Maid's progress, he stood straighter than he had in months. "Everything's under control," he reported. "No incidents worth mentioning." Behind him, she coughed pointedly. He ignored her. "Are you sure?" the council officer pressed. "No irregularities?" "None," he said firmly. "Routine maintenance. Crew morale stable." Her ears twitched wildly at that, but she said nothing, only grinning like she held a secret the entire galaxy would never pry from her. When the transmission ended, she leaned against the wall, smirking. "Stable morale? That's what you call this?" He shrugged. "What else would you call it?" "Chaotic. Entertaining. Alive." He considered that, then nodded. "Yeah, alive works." As they walked the corridor together, the ship steady beneath their feet, he realized something had shifted. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living, awkwardly, hilariously, unpredictably, but living. And somehow, it didn't scare him. She glanced sideways, mischievous as ever. "So, do you want me to knock next time?" He laughed, shaking his head. "Not a chance. You'd probably break the door." "True," she admitted with a grin. And just like that, the accident that started it all no longer felt like a mistake. It felt like the beginning of something he hadn't known he was missing. Out here, in the endless silence of space, he'd found the one sound he didn't mind keeping forever. Her laughter. The end.